As Orient heads to Drupa, the managing director of TPH, Rishab Kohli, visited the PrintWeek Studio. He spoke about the investments and how he expects them to pay off.
So first and foremost, welcome Rishabs. Thank you very much for doing this. Officially, let me introduce you for our audience. You're Managing Director of TPH, Orient, a true blueprint lineage, an organization which in a way revolutionized the newspaper industry, not just in India, but all over the world. I wouldn't say revolutionize, but also democratize the entire who own newspaper presses. So thank you very much to TPH for doing that for us, because I think it just made information available and accessible to all of us. So what we are going to talk about is in a way TPH 2.0, and what better place to start with than Drupa. All eyes on Drupa, and from what a little bird has told us, is one of the largest stalls that an Indian manufacturer has, with a beautiful mezzanine, etc. So what's in store, and what's TPH's plan for 28th May when Drupa rolls out at Dusseldorf?
For sure. So firstly, thank you for the very kind words. It's firstly a privilege for me to be able to be the current managing director of TPH. Drupa, for us and for me personally, is sort of a culmination of a journey that me and my board sort of started about in I think 2020, where we sort of looked at the industry and looked at what is needed for the future of the industry, what infrastructure, what type of machinery, what type of products need to be built in order to build the industry for not only the next 10 years, but for the next 20 or 30 years. So at Drupa, we will be showcasing all of our new products. So we will be one of the biggest Indian stalls there. I think one of the biggest three, I think, and where we will be showcasing our India's first ever fully made in India color inkjet press.
Yes.
India's first ever fully made in India high-speed folder gluer, and a label flexo press as well. So we will be showing and running all three of these machines, along with our consumables, which we also make in India, things such as chemicals and our other products.
Yep.
So we will be showing all of that. It requires a large stall. Both of my marketing team, my sales team, and my bank account know it. So it's but you know, TPH, the Orient Group, has always been one of the biggest exhibitors from India, and it's a big one. It's probably the biggest one we've ever done. It's extremely exciting. I think it's important not only for us, but I think it's important for India as a whole.
That's true.
These are things coming out of our own country, which is
makes
important.
sense. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong. It's what, 50s since when TPH was at Drupa?
I think the 50s.
Yeah, and now with what could be called a fully manufactured inkjet device in India, 7-color, bells and whistles. I saw the machine. I saw 2 of the devices at PAMEX, and took troubled your demo team quite a bit. So 2 things really: this sort of make in India, the brand itself. How are you going to position it among the big daddies at Drupa?
I mean, look, the what you had said earlier just really struck a nerve with me. The word democratize is crucial for me. I think me and the leadership of the company that we've put together, I think I'm not going to deviate from, don't fix something if it's not broken.
Nice.
What Orient has always done is they have democratized products, not only for India, but the entire world.
True.
By making it ourselves. We are a manufacturing company through and through. We're not traders.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do it for, again, inkjet is also, we also have a book press, a color book press and a mono book press that we've already shown at various other exhibitions. But we're going to try and democratize inkjet for the masses primarily, ideally in India, but also abroad. We're a large export company.
Sure.
Folder gluers, we're trying to do the same, democratize that, get that into the hands of people that, you know, maybe now the only options really are Europe and China.
True.
So get them a good quality press and a good quality piece of machinery at capex and opex that makes more sense than what they're getting now.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
It's as simple as that.
We'll come back to
Yes.
the capex, opex, because I know that is your sort of forte in a way.
Yeah.
But I also liked something that you shared with us at PAMEX about inkjet being the great equalizer. And I like that because it resonated a lot with what Mr. Kohli had once upon, I mean, this was what, almost 2.5 decades ago, talked about the single circumference cold set press and, you know, how it was the great equalizer. So I see a kind of,
oh, that's interesting.
you know,
I didn't know
the
that
dots, the dots joining in
like
a way.
that.
Yeah,
that's really nice. That's really nice. You never told me about that, but it is. I mean, inkjet, you print using heads.
Yes.
Right. So the print quality is not much different, really, compared to any of the big guys. Back in the day, unfortunately, what you had was you had KBA and all these big presses running at 3 times your speed.
True.
So it wasn't, and the quality was excellent.
Yeah.
But what you have here is we run at the same speed of any of the big guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our quality is the same as any of the big guys.
Yeah.
We're just, in many of the cases, better, faster, quicker.
Sure.
And that's the idea that we've come with. And I mean, it's taken years. It's easier to say it now.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's taken many years, and it's been 3 years sort of in the making. So it's an interesting parallel. So,
yes. Yeah. I mean, before we sort of focus on the present and what's going to happen and unfold, just a moment to doff our hat to Mr. Kohli. I mean, is somebody I think is an industry icon, somebody who set the goalposts for the rest of us in a way, and where to move. And I recall 2 things which I picked up from him. One was his passion for foundries, then a sort of unbelievable understanding about metallurgy, and I was and that also gave me a sense about how printing is a science. And the second thing is, of course, what you've alluded to is making the best in class at a affordable price, which was something I think he was quite passionate about. That sasta, tikau, but at the same time, a Rolls Royce. So my question to you, because I mean he exited 2 years ago in June of 2022, but what are the lessons that you've learned from somebody like him? Breakfast conversations, car conversations.
I mean, to me, it was obviously very different to what he was to the industry.
Of course, yes.
But he was, it was just, even to me in the industry, he was just larger than life. I think everyone knows that. And he used to joke that the founder of TPH, who was my grandfather, my dad used to tell me that your grandfather used to call me a lohar, and because his blood had metal running through it.
Right.
Dad was an engineer through and through.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of the conversations, 99% of the time, honestly, I'm not an engineer. I'm more of an economics and marketing guy, but a lot of it went over my head. But the one thing he told me that always resonated with me, and we sort of, I mean, in our internal things that I've tried to emphasize to my teams, no matter which business vertical we're talking about, the one thing we've tried to emphasize is to ensure that what Dad always used to say is you're not selling a machine. You're selling a service, and you're selling capital equipment, which is actually other people's livelihoods.
That's true.
Right? It's not like you're selling Colgate or toothbrushes or clothes. You're selling a machine on which hundreds of people will make their livelihood. So you're selling a service, and it's a responsibility more than anything. And that is something, I mean, I probably took a little bit too much too hard because I think...
In what way?
I don't know. I always thought it was... for me, I hadn't come from this industry. I'd come from another industry, and I had a lot of experience in finance and in business, but not really in printing and patching up until almost 5 years ago. But for me, it was the reason I really grew a passion for it, because I didn't initially have a passion for it, and honestly fell in love with this industry is because of the impact that I see it having on a daily basis.
Yep.
So
That's
when it comes to the responsibility of selling capital infrastructure to the printing and packaging industry now,
Yep.
it's as much of a responsibility as it is a business and a money-making exercise.
Sure.
So yeah, that was one thing he was very keen on. And I think a lot of people in the industry knew he took this very seriously. And he tried to promote this as much as possible. So, yeah.
But the other thing that he used to say, I mean, this is not to me, but I overheard him tell someone ki tayari karo engineering ke liye, but study balance sheets and also be a CA.
I don't know. Did I tell you that he said that to me? Because he used to say that to me.
Right.
He said, Rish, there's there's so many talented engineers in India.
That's true.
You need someone who has a business mindset and who can create a vision. Right? I mean, Dad obviously worked in offset for, I mean, TPH it's almost 78 years since TPH was founded. And, we were specialists in offset. Dad was brilliant in offset, did everything in offset. He was an engineer. And, in the last 4 years alone, we've innovated 3 different streams of 3 different verticals, 3 different technologies in flexo, packaging, which is folding and gluing, and die cutter soon, and then we have inkjet as well. So you've innovated in 3 different segments, which is kind of what he was pointing to, because one engineer can only do so much.
That's true.
But if you have someone with a vision that can look at 3 different segments, or a team with a vision that can look at multiple segments, you can exponentially grow your business, which is where we're at now.
Nice. So 2 things you said. One is the engineering and the offset, and the other is, of course, the financial brain cells. I don't know if I'm permitted to share this in public, but you're an investment banker. Was an investment banker. So spreadsheets is something I suppose you did a lot of. I'm just trying to get a sense that, and of course you mentioned the fact that, there was this whole technology journey that TPH had of 7 to 8 decades. We are seeing, volatile times. You're a student of economics, classical economics, as you say. Are you seeing with what TPH is doing with the inkjet devices and, of course, the die-cut, that there is a kind of a shift in technology regimes? I mean, like you're a classical economist, I'm a classical historian. So, I mean, student of classical history. So I see this shift in regimes constantly. I mean, it has shaped human civilization. So are we going to see that kind of a shift now with technology regimes? And, what you're attempting to do or, managing to do with inkjet?
My belief with a lot of these things is technology is, and this is not me saying it.
Of course.
I'm not that smart. I don't remember who said this.
Right.
But one of the authors has said this. Great technological development happens due to necessity. 99%. You go through history. Economic development, industrial development, it happens through necessity. The necessity in this case being, why do you need faster folder gluers? Why do you need more automated machines? That's because labor prices are rising, costs are rising, so you need machinery that can be more productive in order to give you economies of scale. Runs are getting shorter. That's a control of the free market.
Correct.
You have, I'm not forcing the runs to get shorter.
That's true.
The consumer is, the free market is. So there is a fact, runs are getting shorter, which is driving the necessity for
also
inkjet development.
Less stocking, less, more turnaround, quicker turnarounds.
Like what do you do? It forces you to develop. So what you have to, ideally what you want to do is you want to predict what the free market is going to do. My belief is the free market is going to go towards shorter runs. I think my belief is that customization in packaging, customization in any type of printing, variable data printing, be it security printing, it's going to be, you're going to need it. And my role is, the job of any businessman today is to predict what the free market is going to do and invest in and promote technology that can cater to those needs. And that's why we've sort of gone with inkjet. And I think this technological shift that you're talking about, it's not something that should happen. It's something that has to happen. We don't have a choice. It's the free market that's dictating it, not me.
Right.
So
one of the heaviest investments you've made. I mean, this is huge from what I'm trying to ascertain from what you've done. Yeah.
So I mean, look, our Flexo presses, we obviously got some technology in, worked with a lot of people. Our folder gluers, similar. And these aren't small investments. India's first folder gluer. But inkjet, if you're making something that can run AccuSync and UV ink, it's a heavy investment.
True.
Ink delivery systems to be made in India is not easy. Getting a delivery system and essentially a mechanical delivery system that can control web tension while not being overly large, while making sure that it's completely integrated with. We're using Kyocera heads, so Kyocera has been a big help to us. So we have a lot of these partners that have helped us along the way. But it is an investment because it's never been done, right?
That's
so you have to develop vendors, which means you have to pay the vendors to do those developments. And this sort of stuff doesn't happen in India.
True.
Right.
And it's also interesting because compared to a lot of the other biggies who in a way put all their, eggs in one basket, you have been, shall I say, smart in a way and deft.
I guess so. I think that's where the past sort of experiences come through.
Pretty handy,
You know, a lot of the guys that have sort of everyone's diversifying, right? Because Gravio and Offset is a pretty stagnant market at the moment. It's not growing at the percentages it was. So a lot of these guys are looking at, I mean, openly, they're looking at technology such as a CI Flexo, right?
Of course.
Now I had that technology and I could have built it ASAP, but the fact of the matter is the numbers didn't add up.
Sure.
You're selling 15 machines in India a year, right? As I said, I believe runs are getting shorter. And what you have to do is you have to stick to a thesis. And I believe CI Flexo is a great market, right? It didn't fit with my business plan at the moment. So we decided to focus on inline Flexos. And you look at the American market and you'll see that that's not a CI market either. That's an inline market and they're just going wider and wider with their inline Flexo widths, which is why we innovated sleeve technology. And we've got presses that go up to 1,000 mm with sleeve technology. That allows you to, essentially that's what the Americans are doing. So we believe we can shape the industry because I, fortunately enough, I'm one of the leaders. So I'll have the privilege of probably shaping a lot of this industry in the next, if not 5 years, hopefully I'll be around for a while, for the next 20 years to come. Right? And when you shape it, Indians need low capex and low opex. As simple as that.
That's true.
So, and that's why the free market isn't buying the amount of CI Flexos that Europe is buying. So those decisions. So what we purposely try to do is we stuck to the thesis. Runs are getting shorter. More flexibility is needed. More inline functions are needed. You go to print houses in India today. You have machines running that can run at 600 meters per minute, running at 150. So
that's true.
What you want to do is you want to educate the consumer and get the consumer to invest in the right things so he can really make enough money to continue to grow. Right? There has to be a profit at the end of it. Your ROIs cannot be 15 years on a machine. Can't be 10 years on a machine. It can't. It makes no logical sense. So that's why we sort of stuck to 2 or 3 different avenues. Things that I believed in. Inkjet being the very first, to be honest, that I looked at because I was just personally very passionate about it. Flexo and folder gluers and die cutters and stuff like that came along the way. A lot of people sort of helped guide me, but we've that's the vision for the company. You don't want to we want to be a one-trick pony. You want to be an amalgamation of printing and packaging machines and services.
Makes a lot of sense. So as they say, commit the man, commit the hour, commit the man. And so I think 3 or 4 things are happening here in terms of, and it's interesting to look at this this was a Harvard business case study kind of a thing. One is, of course, what you're processing and what is fermenting in your, festering in your head. then sort of the arrival of somebody whom we both have a soft corner and, deep respect for, Ramani, who was in a way a kind of a mentor for you. Then, of course, the kind of conversations you're having with your colleagues, peers, I'm sure a lot of the other TPH partners in India, globally, etc. And, all this fermentation. So, 2 or 3 things that I want to ask you. One is, what was the role that somebody like Mr. Ramani played in, prodding you in, because it always sometimes just requires that little push.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you, as you said, you had a problem, but you found someone who could give you a solution. And then also the kind of conversations that you were overhearing, which, always are reassuring in our kind of industry space.
Firstly, when it comes to Ramani sir, invaluable.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, and very rarely do I have mentors in life. I've had excellent mentors in my previous life, in my business. My directors are great mentors, people who've run 15, 20,000 crore companies that are professional directors.
Yeah.
TPH is still very much a family-owned business, but obviously with an MNC sort of culture.
Yeah.
Ramani sir was by a country mile my biggest sort of mentor at the start of the inkjet division. He educated me a lot. The first few months, we didn't even do anything. It was sort of, I was back at school and
Nice.
he was a professor to me, and
So what was this? Blueprints, samples, schematic diagrams?
Not even. He just sat me down and spoke at me for hours. He had he was with Kodak, he was with HP, all these guys, so he had their data.
Right.
And I mean, realistically, he didn't even talk to me about the machine or the technology. He actually talked to me about the application. So this is because again, this is the cost per print you need to achieve in order to do this. This is the cost per print you need to achieve in the label market. Cost per page you need to achieve in the book market, in the mono segment, in the color book segment. This is the cost per print you need to achieve. You'll do this by using this head with this combination of ink. And it was...
So this is what the famous Ramani formula of 2 paisa, 3 paisa.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
So I think you could say, I think a couple of my boys now, actually the guy who's heading it now would probably follow a similar formula.
Right.
And those sorts of things were big. And then obviously on the technology side and on the development side, we just started reaching out to a whole lot of people. We needed... India's so far behind. So far behind. I never understood it. It's so far behind, and we... which was interesting.
So
and
this, what do you mean? In terms of obsolescence or in terms of efficiency?
In terms of know-how. The biggest thing when you're making a machine is know-how. Right, you can make a web transport, but when it comes to the rest of it, even the integration side of it, we're just so far behind as a nation. It's the one thing that, because even TPH, to me, more than anything, right? This company was founded by a freedom fighter, right? Making stuff in India and being able to not be reliant on anyone else and to democratize a product that's a purpose. And purpose-driven businesses, it is known throughout the ages, do a lot better than ones that don't have one.
That's true.
So for me, getting that know-how up as an industry, it doesn't matter if I'm doing, I will do it myself, right? I love my business. I will attempt to beat competition, do a lot of things, but getting the know-how up as an industry is what our sort of goal was. And Ramani sir was instrumental with that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So instrumental with that. And a lot of, obviously the machine wasn't made when he was alive, and unfortunately he passed away, but completely instrumental. And to answer your second question, there's some industry colleagues. I've been very fortunate to know a lot of European manufacturers from, my father's friends, my own friends from KBA, from big companies outside of India. and they're very top management and understand what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it. KBA has a Samba head that they're using, and they're all trying to do what we're trying to do. I just think we're doing it better. But that's my opinion. But and my completely unbiased opinion.
And not humble at all.
Not humble at all. Humility is a virtue I'm yet to know. But I mean, we're trying to do it ourselves.
Nice.
And the specs are the same. The print quality is almost pretty much the same. Speeds are the same. Everything's the same. So it's just our capex and opex is far better. Our numbers are better. But what those guys are doing, I got to learn from them. They taught me a lot about what the future of this industry is from a global perspective. And that helped a lot. So lots of listening.
There were two things that Ramani told me about you. One was that you were clocking, let me get this right because I'm quoting him, that you're clocking more air miles than a Lufthansa air pilot, because I think at that time you were like crazily traveling all over the world. And the other thing was, which was kind of interesting, was that he knows how to listen. Which he says I can't say for very many people at the top of the pyramid in a way. So which is I think a good tribute. So what were you? I mean, what was it you were listening to? Nuts and bolts? Or?
No. Macro stuff.
Okay.
The nuts and bolts. As I said, I'm not an engineer.
Right.
The nuts and bolts were more with my engineers and the guys I hired. We have some excellent, IIT guys, guys from really good institutes, young guys, experienced guys, a great mix on the back end that we hired post-COVID, but and of course pre-COVID, but it was more the macro side of things.
Nice.
And it was more on the front end. I think the most that I listened and learned and what I'm trying to pass on to my team is a customer-centric approach.
Nice.
Which basically ensures that what you have is you have to understand in putting it very succinctly, understanding return on investments. And that saying that is very easy, but understanding it is very difficult because in each segment, right, when it comes to folder gluers, you have to understand why do we have a 500 meter per minute folder gluer and why was I so keen on it being 500 meters per minute? Because it's faster than anything else at that price range.
True.
Right. And what you get is you get improved ROIs. Why was I so keen on a better OPEX on an inkjet press? Because it's all based on ROIs. It's all based on cost per print and ROIs. So that's what I understood. And based on that, what technologies are going to succeed in the future? That is what I tried to listen to and tried to understand. And what are the bottlenecks? The biggest bottleneck, Ramani sir taught me one thing, for example, was that, you buy a inkjet press and you spend almost double that on the finishing equipment.
That's true.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, if I was a customer, why would I go into this? Right? So our finishing equipment is a fraction of the cost of our inkjet press.
Nice.
Which is what we were extremely keen on. So those are the things the air miles are a bit much. Because again, the technology doesn't exist in India.
That's
so
true.
you go anywhere and everywhere on a whim, hoping that you find this. And then me and my team scoured the earth trying to get this, and now we are where we are. It took years of hard work, but we are where we are.
It's kudos. Because the other thing is that you have a lot of traders who represent all this, but I mean to be hardcore manufacturing. And that sort of brings me to, the most important question, because obviously a lot of us have visited the Faridabad factory. We've seen the evolution of that factory and, how it upped the ante in terms of so many things. Probably the first CNC, how it was doing the turnaround in terms of, these tests on metal fatigue and those kind of things. What I want to know is, obviously you've rebooted. This is the new sort of, avatar. What's happening in the factory? What's happening on the shop floor? What are you done in terms of, reprogramming the factory?
So, I mean, obviously, when we came back, printing and packaging isn't our only business. Should probably mention that. That's important. We're in 6 different industries. We have a factory in solar panels and modules and cells. We manufacture defense and aerospace equipment. We got into chemicals and plates for chemical manufacturing at the moment for the printing and packaging industry. And then we make inverters and batteries. That's another factory that's been put up. And then, of course, we have our printing and packaging division, which has the 3 machines, Flexo, Offset, 4 machines, Flexo, Offset, packaging, which is folder gluers and die cutters, and inkjet.
Yep.
So on the factory side, as I said, don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah.
But updation of equipment was required. There was a little bit of investment required there. Fortunately, these other verticals have given me a lot of free cash flow to reinvest in the factory. And our verticals as well. We're a profitable business, very profitable business. And what we can do is reinvest capital. And I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that.
Sure.
And again, being a group of companies and being in different industries has allowed us not only to scale. I mean, we're doing almost, from when I took over, we're turning over 10 times, if not almost 15 times the amount.
Okay.
In just sheer revenue. Now that allows you to operate at a different level. Sure. That allows you to have the courage to take on a KBA and a Bobst. It allows you to have the courage to take on a HP, a Kodak, and a Xerox. Right?
Yeah.
Because I promise you, it takes a lot of courage.
Of course, yeah.
And it was daunting at first, but you know, if something's worth doing, you do it.
Yeah.
So
nice.
lots of advancements. People being the key thing. A lot of new people on the engineering side. A lot of excellent talent on the front end. Mr. Suprakash, who's joined our inkjet division after Ramani sir is its head. Vikas, who's joined the Flexo division. Navdeep, who's the head of the folder gluer division. Arnab, head of the offset division. He's old, but the factory's just developed leaps and bounds. Just updations of machines, updations of softwares. That's how the shop flow sort of evolved. So now there were 2 factories, now there's 6. And it's a great environment. And economies of scale and that sort of stuff really does help. And we're able to really invest in R&D. But I think the biggest change is a real focus on R&D. I think although our group at the time was an R&D, loved R&D, but it was only focused on offset.
Sure.
I have my R&D budgets are 10 times the amount of what they were like 10 years ago.
And what do you mean when you say R&D? Because it means different things. I mean, there are 3 or 4 terms in our industry which everybody uses loosely: state of the art, cutting edge, quality. I mean, it can mean anything for everybody, right?
R&D for me is basically, I mean, it's obviously research and development of new products, right? But what I try and do is basically R&D, a customer-centric R&D.
Okay.
So R&D focused on improving return on investments.
Nice.
That's one thing when I sit with my R&D division. There's a bunch of guys there, right? And I being completely clueless when it comes to engineering. Now, actually, frankly speaking, at this point, you might as well make me an engineer.
Good.
Because I've just been sitting there for so long.
Right.
But there's a big team. We have a staff of 800, 900 people now across the divisions. When we sit on R&D, no matter in any industry that we're in, I tell them you do ROI focused R&D. That doesn't mean make the product cheaper. That means make the product more efficient, more productive, better, right? So when it comes to R&D, for me, it's literally, I mean, I wasn't planning on answering this. I didn't have it written down, but when I sit with these boys and I sit with these guys, it's all it's ROI focused R&D. That's literally a memo that has gone out, written by me and my team. ROI focused R&D is the only thing we can do, because we only have X amount of budget, so we can't be frivolous, right? I don't operate on the budgets that HP and Kodak do. So they can do frivolous stuff.
Right.
I can't. What I do with 10 rupees has to have the same impact as what HP does with 1,000. So ROI focused R&D is the answer to that question.
And what is the problem? Are we, because you have this outsider in kind of perspective, I'm asking you, because I think all too often we are all too pre-programmed into not seeing the obvious things, but is our industry designed for inefficiency, and what somewhere you seem to be trying to do is get a bit of it out of the way?
I think there's a lot of the biggest problem I found is getting young people into the industry. Inkjet helps with that to a big degree. the printing and packaging industry is one of the biggest industries in the world. I think it's in the top 10.
Sure.
I do know that, right? I don't remember the exact number, but you know, this industry is growing at crazy rates. I mean, there was a PIRA report that I read where the inkjet label industry alone is growing at 17% CAG, 17.3% CAGR or something like that. So it's one of the packaging industry is one of the highest growing industries in the world. Getting youth in has been a struggle for me. I obviously happened to get into this industry. I wasn't in it at the start. So that's one
cause. Are you the youngest at TPH right now?
No, I was for a bit. Right. But now, obviously, I've gotten old. I've gotten old. It is what it is. No, but getting youth in at good levels,
it's a challenge.
It's a challenge, and that breeds inefficiency. I genuinely believe no one is doing true R&D. 90% of the people are. There's no innovations being made. The R&D that is being done by, you know, it's sort of just chalta hai R&D. It's chalta hai business. It doesn't work like that. If you're competing with the likes, if you want to compete with the likes of even China, I know a lot of people hate on China. There are billion-dollar companies in China in our industry.
That's true.
There are people making flexo machines, folder gluers, and inkjet machines that have $1 billion in turnover. Right? That's over 8,000 crores.
That's true.
And you don't have a single company in India even touching 1,000 crores in machine making.
So is that, sorry, hold that thought. Is that where your sort of your targets are? Because you seem to have sorted yourself out. Cash flow seems to be good. Product portfolio, tech supremacy. You seem to be investing in R&D. You're obviously, you know, diversified, and you're in a sense ahead of the game. So, you know, again, it's something that someone I admire called Sanat Bhai of Manograph. He used to say that India needs at least 50,000 crore manufacturing companies. Is the time right, finally?
So, for me, I mean, as a group, that was my initial target to get there, and we're almost there as a group with all the businesses combined, which is great for me. But when it comes to the printing and packaging industry and these sort of manufacturing bits, genuinely looking forward to 2028, 2030. Obviously, I'll set targets every year, and I can't be exact when it'll happen. But just the segments we've entered, folder gluers alone can turn over $50 million a year. Right? 1,000 crores means 120 million. Right? It can. There are companies in Turkey that are turning over 20 million in just folder gluers, right? I'm not even touching inkjet because that's huge, right? People like Mr. Pranab Parekh, people like Mr. Sanit Shah are the people besides Dad, of course. Unfortunately, I never got to work with Dad because, you know, he got sick when I was younger. So that's one of the biggest regrets. But these are the sorts of people I look up to. Mr. Parekh created a huge business in India, right? And I respect that a lot. Sanit attempted to create what you're saying in India. And that is something definitely that I want to create. It won't happen. There's a lot that needs to go into it. But in terms of where I've set my mindset, that's exactly it. That sort of number is where eventually I plan to hit.
So what should we be doing as, you know, an industry? Because I mean, obviously you mentioned the Chinese. What I think there are 2 or 3 things they do. They move faster. They hunt in a pack. They're talking to each other constantly. There's a lot of this technology transfer thing that they do. Whereas we work in silos to a large extent. So can we alter that?
You have to. You have to. You can't isolate yourself. Obviously, I haven't been very public about myself, but a lot of the industry, not just the clients, but a lot of the case, my competitors, as you want to call them. I'm not doing, I mean, folder gluers, inkjet, I don't have any competitors. It doesn't exist.
That's true.
But regardless, my competitors will tell you that they all know me. I've always reached out to them. If you do not cooperate, if there is no inorganic growth, you're never reaching this. I entered I entered solar, I've entered inverters. That's all inorganic.
Yeah.
I didn't build that myself.
Sure.
A lot of this Flexo was inorganic.
Yeah.
It's through cooperation. It's through the sharing of ideas. I myself, I know for a fact. I'll give you a very simple example.
Sure.
You have an inkjet press. It needs. I make a lot of the finishing equipment myself. One
Yeah.
or two things I can't make because it makes no sense for me to make it.
Yeah.
And like a 10-15 crore a year business, making those tiny finishing equipment is not going to. I can't do that. My scale is. It won't make sense for me.
Yep.
But I can help someone else develop it.
Yeah.
Right. So when these Chinese companies go there, I've seen them someplace and they say, "Hey, I'm the guy making the press," and then they say, "Okay, we need finishing equipment." They say, "We'll supply the finishing equipment,"
Yep.
and they've got 4 other guys that have already done it, that are smaller,
Yep.
and that have done it. That's one example. Another and then you have a whole package,
Yep.
right? Here, for some reason, that needs to change,
Yeah.
and it will. I think a lot of the manufacturers here now are open,
Yep.
now are looking at this.
Yep.
There's another, like in the packaging industry on the printing side.
Yep.
So there's a need for a lot of inorganic growth in
Yep.
terms of mergers and acquisitions.
Sure.
I think the printing the machine side has the same requirement.
Yep.
Machine and consumable side has the exact same requirement.
Makes sense.
You
Makes a lot of
can't.
sense.
You have to consolidate.
Sure.
You have to consolidate. If you want to scale,
Yep.
consolidate.
Yep.
We have 1,000 people making machines.
Yep.
Consolidate.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I plan to do that once we have already. We've taken technology transfers.
Yep.
And in the future, our plans are very clearly we will, once certain targets are met, we will look at inorganic growth because it's been very good for me in other industries and this industry.
Sure. Sure.
That's key.
Makes a lot of sense. So 2 or 3 things that I'm just reviewing whatever we've sort of been
Sure.
discussing. One is, of course, CapEx, OpEx, which I think is an interesting point that you've made,
Yeah.
and you've sort of labored at that. Then, of course, the fact that you're offering technologies manufactured in India, robust, etc. And you sort of spoke of folder gluers, which I thought was interesting, the number that you threw at us, $50 million, which is great. So it seems everything is in place. Of course, Drupa is going to be like a big ticket event for you, but what's your go-to-market strategy? Because, that I somewhere think is the key. So how do you propose to do that, and what next in terms of steps?
Yeah, fortunately in this industry, your GTM is not rocket science. It's it's much easier.
Sure, sure.
Just because the industry is so small and exhibitions are key.
Yeah.
I will exhibit everywhere.
Right.
I've spent too much time and too many years of my youth developing these machines.
Right.
Our plans are Drupa, after which we will be exhibiting at the Label Expo in India.
Right.
After which there is PrintPack, then
Sure.
there's Label Expo in Spain this time,
Right,
I believe.
right.
Then there is Interpack.
Sure.
In the middle, there's regional expos, the
Yeah.
Gulf expos, and the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Going to everyone.
Sure. Sure.
And the machines I'll be taking around because there's so many in production.
Yeah.
We've already sold. It's not like these are new machines.
Yeah.
We've sold each of these machines. We've
Yeah.
sold Flexos, we've sold inkjet presses, and we've sold folder gluers.
Right.
So these are now in production. They're regular products,
Yeah.
and we'll have machines at every one of these expos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the key is to go to these expos with machines. That's expo marketing is what we've fully focused on
Got it.
in this industry. As simple as it is, what is shown is sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's
And
important.
what's the feedback like? Because I have seen a couple of the machines on sites. I think there are 2 of them that I've seen are beta. But for me, from an outsider perspective, it seemed like great. But what's the response you've been getting from end customers?
Obviously, it's great because
Sure.
again, these end customers are used to
Yeah.
a product that isn't that great,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
again, you're comparing apples to oranges.
That's true.
So for us, it's more so at a production level
Yeah.
to see how we can in the future. Our
Yeah.
machine is great.
Yeah.
The machine is perfect. The
Yeah.
customer's very happy with it.
Yeah.
Excellent feedback. Our folder gluers are running it. There's a folder gluer next to a Bopes folder
Yeah.
gluer,
Yeah.
and ours runs faster. They're replacing the Bopes with ours.
Sure.
Flexo presses are great. Sleeve technology gives them a
Yeah.
lot of flexibility,
Yeah.
less cost
Yeah.
of running. Inkjet presses are the same. My sort of goal with this is when you have these presses installed, right? what I want to do is make sure that our marketing team understands and sees how the runs are going.
Sure, sure.
And even with the chemicals that we make, right?
Yeah.
We want to see how the runs are going, and then we want to advise the customer on little things. Like the reason why offset and gravure are so prominent and have been so prominent in India is because operator knows what to do.
That's true.
He has sort of a sixth sense. A machine is a living organism.
It's a habit.
It's a habit,
Yep.
right? A machine is not. It's a habit, and what we want to do is turn these machines into a habit.
Nice.
And in order to turn these machines into a habit, I have to send people and make sure I constantly understand, how they are doing things.
Yeah.
And how to make sure that the operators, the boys at the floor can generate and get that machine whistling and get that machine really perfect.
Yep.
And then I can advise customers, hey, use this ink. Hey, use this brand of plates.
Sure. Sure.
I know what, or hey, so a machine is a machine, right? But what you need to do is a lot of things go into that machine to make it run. Hey, use this brand of substrate. Get those operators, because these machines are coming whether you like it or not. Operators need to be fully ready.
Got it.
So that was key for me. That was a very important bit.
And just one final question, if you're having this conversation 10 years down the line, where do you see TPH will be in view of all the targets you've set and, and how the market unfolds? And
there's a story that I love.
Okay.
When India became independent,
sure,
right? Do you know what its first need was? The first need that Jawaharlal Nehru decided to focus on was the basic needs of people. Right? It's the bottom of the pyramid. It was electricity. So he called homie Jahangir Baba and said, make electricity in India. We can't rely on outside countries for electricity. Right? When my grandfather started this business, I believe he started it because he was a newspaper man, he was a freedom fighter, and he knew the value of newspapers. And he said, we cannot rely and we have to democratize. Homi Bhabha democratized electricity for India. My grandfather democratized offset presses for India. It's the same. We need this here. But our whole business, be it solar panels, be it MPPT inverters, be it folder gluers, inkjet, these need to be made here. Because these are a necessity today. They're not a luxury. You're telling me that 78 years after independence, we are still relying on China and Europe for folder gluers. We can't make a box at a good price without China and Europe. That blows my mind. In 2030 and 2050, we have to have an amalgamation of printing and packaging machines and services and products. And I promise you, we will be adding more. Maybe not ourselves, because there's only so much a company can do. But through mergers and acquisitions, through partnerships.
Nice.
Where we truly build an even greater institution. Numbers-wise, I don't know where we'll land up. My ambitions are what I've mentioned before.
That's right.
If not more. And I believe we are primed to do that. But it's what these people that I look up to have already done, but I want to do it in the next the next section of the history of the printing and packaging industry in India.
Makes a lot of sense.
And hopefully I'll be here for a while. So that'll be
great. So we're going to see you at Drupa. That's from 20th May to 7th of June. You'll be at the TPH stall. All of you are invited to be there. You can join him for beer, coffee, chai, whatever you like.
Whatever you like.
Before we let you go, I'm going to just do this. This is just, because we've had this really serious conversation, which was great, just to get us to, because you're a fun guy. So
I promise you I'm a fun guy.
So because that's the norm, 5 or 6 rapid fire questions.
Please.
So what do you prefer, web offset, inkjet?
Inkjet.
Okay,
inkjet.
Great. Paper preference, map litho, art?
Art.
Okay,
that's
all right.
Art.
Okay. Leadership quality, telescopic, microscopic?
Telescopic.
Okay, great. And currency, because you're a banking guy, US currency in terms of what is happening with the index, or the rupee, which is quite stable?
Rupee.
Yeah, always? Rupee. And will that affect you, the stability for the
Of course
exports?
it will, but I just prefer I mean, obviously the US currency is more, I mean, that's what you'd want to buy if you're a third person,
Sure,
but
sure.
I back, in terms of growth, I back the Indian economy over
Right.
the US economy, the
Great.
fastest growing economy in the world.
Fantastic,
Rupee.
fantastic. And alt beer or Pilsner? Or Guinness?
Guinness.
Guinness.
I was going to say Guinness.
But the
I'm a
alt
big
at
Guinness
the
person.
Dusseldorf alt is pretty
Is it?
Is pretty
I've
good.
never
Yeah,
tried
yeah,
it.
Yeah, yeah. But it's only
I've never tried
customized
it.
for the...
So the last time I went to Drupa,
Right.
I could not drink beer.
Okay.
I think it was... Oh no, I could drink beer, but I never got to try it.
Because you were a minor.
No, I was a major at the time.
Okay,
But
alright.
I just, the last time I went, I could never try it.
Okay.
But this time, when we're there,
Yes.
we're going to have a beer.
Yeah, yeah.
For
So I
sure.
have an alt beer, that's pretty good.
You're going to
It's
have
a
to
dark
make,
beer, yeah,
you're going to
yeah.
have to make me try it.
I will organize it. All
Great.
right. On that note, cheers and all
Yes,
the best
sir.
to you for
Thank you
this
very
fantastic
much.
journey that you've begun, and I hope
Thank
that you achieve everything that
Thank
the
you very
family
much.
and of course the team wants to.
Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much.